My name is Asecia Noir, I'm 34 years old. And the day my father laughed in my face and told me my sister was getting my $250,000 inheritance. I didn't argue, I didn't cry, and I didn't even ask him why. Because 3 words were already burning inside my head: let him talk first. I was sitting at my parents' dining table in Scottsdale, Arizona, staring at the estate documents my grandmother had left behind when Dad leaned back in his chair and said, "Your sister gets your $250,000 inheritance, sweetheart. You'll be fine." Then he laughed like he had just told the funniest joke in the world. My sister, Brielle, smiled across the table and reached for her wine. "Dad's right," she said softly. "You're always the responsible one. You'll figure something out." I looked at both of them and stayed quiet. They thought I was shocked. They thought I was defeated. They had no idea I already knew something they didn't. 3 weeks earlier, Grandma Eleanor had called me from her hospital room in Phoenix and made me promise one thing: never sign anything my father put in front of me. She had sounded scared, but she refused to explain why. 2 days later, she died. At the funeral, Dad hugged me and whispered, "We'll handle everything together." I believed him until that dinner. What he didn't know was that before Grandma died, she had sent one sealed envelope to an attorney in Tucson with my name written across the front. I hadn't opened it because Grandma's final instruction was clear: "Asecia, only open this if they try to take what I left you." So when Dad laughed about my inheritance, I simply smiled and said, "Okay." He thought I had surrendered. He had no clue that the judge would soon be reading the one document he desperately hoped would never be found. The next morning, I drove from Scottsdale to Tucson with Grandma's envelope sitting on the passenger seat, untouched. I kept my hands tight on the steering wheel because, honestly, I was freaking out. Not because I was afraid of losing the money, but because I finally understood why Grandma had warned me. Her attorney's office was in a quiet brick building near downtown, and when I walked inside, a woman named Marissa Cole looked at me for a long second before saying, "You're Asecia Noir, right?" I nodded. She closed the office door behind me and placed a thick file on the desk. "Your grandmother asked me to keep this until you came yourself." I stared at the envelope. "What's inside?" I asked. Marissa didn't answer immediately. Instead, she slid another document toward me. It was a copy of Grandma's original will, signed nearly 6 months before her death. My name was there. So was the amount, $250,000, along with a small rental property in Mesa. My heart started pounding. Then why did my father say Brielle gets everything? I asked. Marissa leaned back and said something that made my stomach drop. "Because your father may be relying on a second document." I froze. A second will. According to Marissa, Dad had already contacted the estate office and submitted paperwork claiming Grandma had changed her wishes shortly before she died. He was saying Grandma wanted Brielle to receive my inheritance because Brielle was financially struggling. I almost laughed. Seriously? Brielle had just bought a brand new Range Rover. But Marissa wasn't smiling. She told me the second document had one major problem: Grandma's signature looked different, and the witness information didn't match the records in her office. "So you think it's fake?" I whispered. "I think," Marissa said carefully, "that your grandmother expected this." Then she finally pushed the sealed envelope toward me. My fingers trembled as I broke the seal. Inside was one handwritten page and a small flash drive. I read the first sentence, and every bit of warmth left my body. "Asecia, if your father tells you Brielle gets the $250,000, do not fight him yet." I read Grandma's note twice. Then looked at Marissa and said, "What does that mean?" She didn't answer right away. Instead, she plugged the flash drive into her computer and opened a folder labeled with Grandma's initials. Inside were scanned bank statements, emails, medical records, and something that made my hands go cold, a video file dated 11 days before Grandma died. "She told me not to show this to anyone unless you came here alone," Marissa said. I clicked play. Grandma appeared on the screen sitting in her bedroom, wearing the same pearl necklace she had worn at my graduation. Her voice was weak, but her eyes were sharp. "Asecia, if you're watching this, your father has probably already told you that Betrayal gets the money. He will sound confident. Let him. He believes confidence can replace proof." I swallowed hard. Grandma continued, "The $250,000 was never supposed to go to Betrayal. I placed it in a protected account under conditions your father cannot change." Then she mentioned something I had never heard before, a document called the Noir Family Trust Amendment. According to Grandma, Dad had tried to pressure her into signing it months earlier, claiming he needed access to her assets to protect the family. She refused. She also revealed that Betrayal had been secretly borrowing money from Grandma for nearly 2 years, promising to repay every dollar. She never did. But the biggest shock came next. Grandma said Dad had discovered the original inheritance documents and had attempted to convince her to rewrite them. When she refused, he allegedly threatened to take her to court and have her declared incapable of managing her own affairs. I stared at the screen, barely breathing. Then Grandma said the sentence that changed everything: "Your father thinks he has the final document, but he doesn't know I made one more copy." Marissa paused the video. "That copy," she said, opening another folder, "was filed with the county court 6 days before your grandmother died." My heart slammed against my ribs. Suddenly, Dad's laughter at the dining table made sense. He wasn't celebrating because he had one. He was laughing because he believed he had already destroyed the evidence. And for the first time since Grandma's funeral, I wasn't afraid of what my family had done. I was wondering how they would react when the judge saw what Grandma had hidden from all of them, when the hearing finally came. I walked into the Maricopa County courtroom with my stomach twisted into knots, but I kept my face calm. Dad was already there beside Betrayal, wearing the same confident expression he had at our dining table. Seriously, he looked like the case was already over. Betrayal wouldn't even look at me. Marissa sat beside me with the original trust documents secured in a folder, and I kept thinking about Grandma's last warning: "Let them talk first." The judge entered, everyone stood, and within minutes Dad's attorney began presenting the supposed second will. Dad leaned toward Betrayal and whispered something that made her smile. I almost laughed myself. They still had no idea what was coming. The judge examined the document, then asked a simple question: "Where is the original?" Dad's attorney hesitated. "Your Honor, the original is unavailable, but we have a certified copy." The judge frowned. Certified by whom? The room went completely silent. Marissa then stood and handed the clerk the document Grandma had filed 6 days before her death. The judge opened it slowly, read the first page, then stopped. "This is a trust amendment," he said. Dad suddenly leaned forward. "That document is invalid." The judge looked directly at him. "Sir, I'll determine that." Dad's face changed. For the first time, I saw fear instead of confidence. Then the judge read the part Grandma had written in her own words: "My son, Victor Noir, has repeatedly attempted to pressure me into changing my estate plan. If he presents any document claiming that Asecia's inheritance belongs to Betrayal, that document is to be treated as fraudulent unless independently verified by my attorney." I heard Betrayal gasp. Dad went pale. But the judge wasn't finished. He turned another page and read the final paragraph. Grandma had left instructions that the $250,000 must go directly into an account controlled by me, and the Mesa property was mine as well. Then came the part nobody expected. Grandma had attached copies of messages from Dad asking her to sign away my inheritance, along with a handwritten note saying, "He believes Asecia will stay quiet because she always has." I looked across the courtroom at my father. He finally understood why I had stayed silent. I wasn't powerless. I was waiting for the truth to speak for me. The judge rejected the second document, ordered the estate transferred according to Grandma's filed instructions, and referred the suspected forgery issue for further investigation. Brielle started crying. Dad stared at the floor. I didn't celebrate. I simply closed Grandma's folder and whispered, "You were right, Grandma." Outside the courthouse, Brielle stopped me and apologized through tears. I told her I hoped she meant it, but forgiveness didn't mean forgetting. Then I drove back to Scottsdale, deposited the first inheritance payment, and framed Grandma's handwritten note in my office. My father once laughed and told me my sister would get my $250,000. He was right about one thing: I stayed quiet. He just never understood that sometimes silence isn't surrender. Sometimes it's the moment before the truth walks into the room.